Hey everybody, Reagan here. In lieu of noonday prayer today, I am going to be telling another godly place story. And today I'm going to be telling the story of the exile and return. And it's not particular to Christianity alone, but one of the things that we do well, or that we try to do well, and is our foundation, one of our foundations, is to read scripture and then try to find inspiration and be open to revelation from God about ways to make it relatable and to resonate with our own lives today. So I hope that this story does that for you in light of the pandemic and social distancing. I think that you'll find that some of the wording and some of the story sound familiar, whether that's because we're not gathering as a worshiping community, or whether that's because you're having to distance yourself from family and friends, whether because you have anxiety about where we are, or simply because life doesn't feel normal right now. So I hope that this story brings you some hope and some ways to think about your life in a meaningful way as it is right now. If you're familiar with Godly Play, you'll know that it ends with what we call wondering questions. And these are open-ended questions. There's no right or wrong answer. And I would really encourage you, if you're willing to be vulnerable and brave, that you would comment your answers to the wondering questions so that other people can see them, other people can be inspired by what you're feeling and thinking. And then I would hope that it would also be a good outlet for you to express where you are in light of all of our news and where we are in the world. So this is the Exile and Return. If you're familiar with Godly Play, you will notice that not all of my materials match what you're supposed to use for this story. And that's because right now Grace does not have a Godly Play room yet. So any materials that I have are just ones that I've collected or purchased on my own. So when I tell different stories, sometimes I have to hodgepodge pieces together. So hopefully that will not be too distracting for you if you're familiar with the story. But this is Exile and Return. I wonder if you're ready to hear a story. This is the desert. The desert is a dangerous place. During the day, it is very hot, and at night, it is very cold. When the wind blows, the sand stings when it hits your skin. People must wear many clothes to protect themselves from the burning sun and the blowing sand. It's easy to get lost, because a path that is here one day might be gone the next. There's almost nothing green there, and almost no water. And without food or water, people die. The desert is a dangerous place. People only go there if they have to. Here is the city of Jerusalem. This is the wall of the city. And inside is the temple built for God. Here are some of the people of God. The people knew that God was in the temple, but they also thought that that was the only place where they could pray to God. The people thought that the city wall would protect them from everything. Then the Assyrians came, and they attacked the city. It was a terrible time. People fought, and many starved. But finally, the Assyrians went away. Then the Babylonians came, and they did not go away. The king of Babylon wanted the city of Jerusalem for himself. They burned down the walls, and they burned the temple. They took many of God's people into exile. Only a few were left in the land. The soldiers marched the people of God out of the city. And as the people looked back at Jerusalem burning, they wondered if they would ever see it again. The people had to go to bed when the soldiers said. They had to get up when the soldiers said. They had to eat what the soldiers said. They had to do everything that the soldiers said. Many grew weary, and some even died. It took a long time. The people were in exile. They could not go home. They hung their harps on the weeping willow trees, and they sang sad songs. They even began to turn towards Jerusalem when they said their prayers. Slowly, the people began to realize that somehow God was still with them. God's presence was with them when they gathered to read scripture and to tell the old stories and to pray. The king of Babylon allowed many people to work. Some opened shops, and some worked for the king. It was a shock when the king of Persia came to take Babylon for himself. This new king allowed some of the people to go back. The first group went with Ezra. They began to rebuild the temple. Later, more were allowed to return. They went with Nehemiah. They began to rebuild the walls of the city. And then the people were allowed to go home again. They were no longer in exile. Do you know what happened? Not all of them went back. They knew that God was in this strange place. They stayed because God was there too. I wonder which part of this story you liked best. I wonder which part of the story is most important. I wonder where you are in this story, or which part of this story is about you. I wonder if there's any part of this story that we could leave out and still have all the story we need. Here are the cities and the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the people of God, and the desert. So that is the story of the Exile in Return. Thank you for joining me. I hope that it brought you some meaning and maybe some ways to think about where you are and where we are as a world in light of COVID-19. I would love to hear in the comments or send me a direct message and let me know how it resonated with you or any other thoughts that you might have or want to share. Much love to all of you, and I hope you have a lovely afternoon, and I will see you tonight for Compline. Take care.